spelling packets, and I'm going to show you. So I actually got this idea from Sequential Spelling, and it was to do a daily dictation. And I was like, well, that's a good idea. So you're working these packets, right? And I would say, like, use these as you see fit, and you can always build on them, right? So you may not even need to do all of the activities at the beginning. The words are very simple, especially in level 1. So you're writing the words 3 times. You're introducing whatever the lesson is for the week, the list. You're talking about the patterns that stand out, right? There's CVC words, they're closed syllables. These all have short vowels. And you talk about what a short and a long vowel is. So you don't want to overwhelm them. Like, these do get progressively harder during the week, and then they get progressively harder, or I should say harder, but more complex. And it won't be harder necessarily for them because they've been doing this stuff. So your child's capacity is increasing, the assignments are getting a little bit more in depth each day, but I noticed that on Sequential Spelling, they would do like a daily activity, and then they would do a dictation. And I was like, that's not a bad idea, especially in the early years when you're like already working pretty heavily with your student anyways. So as they get older, I mean, my older son, like, I just give him his packet at the beginning of the week and put it in his folder and like switch out his cards for him. And I'm like, okay, go away. Come back on Sunday for your quiz. I mean, we might play like, we probably do play Hangman once a week, my Hangman game, or with the words, or memory. But for the most part, like, he can be on his own. But at the beginning, this isn't a bad idea. So I just wrote in here, this is an optional add-on, right? It just comes in the bundles. It's free. And I just have this form here. So student, write down words as you hear them in column 1, right? Syllable by syllable may help. Then check against the list so they can check themselves when they're done. And then write each missed word correctly in column 2. So they can write it. You can write it multiple times or whatever. So for us, somebody does have to read them, the words, right? So that would look like someone's reading to them, am, right? So they're like, oh yeah, sweet, am. And then and then as. Maybe they're as, right? Maybe they did a Z. At, rat, sat. And if it's hard, like especially when you get to longer or multi-syllable words, let me see. I think the first year, like everything is one syllable. What about year 3? Let me check your year 3 list. Supreme, okay. Let's say you got your later on supreme, and then I might say supreme. Maybe they're like supreme. So you might want to give it to them syllable by syllable, and I do that a lot, even when I'm doing like whenever we're doing our spelling test. I notice this mostly in my older son, his vocabulary words, because they're mostly multi-syllable. And so maybe you say something like disenfranchise. You're like disenfranchise, right? You kind of break up the syllable for them so they can hear it syllable by syllable. Because a lot of times when you're spelling, you're actually spelling syllable by syllable. That makes more sense. Anyway, so then they can go back and they can check against their spelling list. They can get it out. I want to train them to self-check their work, right? And then give them something to keep them honest. Give them a pen so they can't change their work. And they're like, am, correct, and they're like, oh no, as, right? At, correct, right. So then they could come over here, and whatever ones they got wrong, because usually they're going to get more right than wrong, right? Maybe they only got 1 or 2. Hopefully none, but they're like as, and maybe they write as, and you're like, it's the second sound of S. You remind them as, as their like correction activity. And you could actually do these every day. So you could just print off front and back, you know, like a stack of these and just stick them in the back of their, this is why I like these folders so much, in the back of their folder, so that you can just pull one out as you go. Or when you're making up their packets, because I print these in advance, I print them like, you know, 10 at a time, 15 at a time. And you could just print out, if you want to do it halfway through the week, you could just print out a bunch of these and just stick them in each weekly folder between maybe days, I don't know, 3 and 4 or something. Of course, that's like the ones I can't. You just stick them in there so that when they come to it, they can do their activity, and then they come to that page and they're like, oh, okay, I need my dictation. Does that make sense? Anyways, I think that actually would be good. And then you could get a gauge on how well they are mastering this word list and these patterns. And you could also be like, okay, well, that's good. So I see that you missed these words. And so we'll use those words to play our hangman game with. Right? So you could use whatever words they're struggling with to play your hangman game. Okay, that was just a quick tip. All right, talk to you later.